You're listening to Two Beers Until Phronesis, a philosophy podcast for students, graduates, and anyone else interested in ideas. Alongside regular guests and friends, we discuss some of life's big questions over a few beers. Enjoy. When you say start off with context, you mean gloat about the fact we went on a field trip?
Back when we were in the EU and we could skip the queues.
You more recently did this field trip. So this was a field trip with the University of Gloucestershire.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Spain. Córdoba in Spain. Córdoba, however you're supposed to say it.
I thought it was Córdoba, but apparently it's Córdoba.
So this is,
Córdoba.
This is an area in southern Spain,
Yeah.
which is famed for having a rich cultural history, which includes all of the Abrahamic religions apparently living in harmony.
A golden age.
A golden age indeed. Or is it? So this golden age was supposedly between the years 786 and 1492.
I've got completely different dates.
Do you?
Yeah. Wasn't 1492 like Reconquista and stuff like that?
Do you have an earlier date?
No, I've just got in the middle of that.
Yes. You've got 786, haven't you? As the first
756.
Right.
I don't know why. Because Muslim rule in Spain was 711 to 1492.
Yes.
31.
I think already we've hit into one of the problems, so I think I know why this is.
Right.
This whole golden age is generally contested anyway. Like, it may or may not be a thing. We're going to kind of look into why it may not be. And it has to do with the nature of Christianity and the nature of Islam, who were fighting over these places, and the Jewish population was caught in the middle. And it has to do with dates of rule and certain laws that were passed and certain religious demographics that were completely thrown out of the country and stuff. So I think some people think it starts and ends a lot earlier than it does because of it depends how you classify it or whether you think this age happened at all.
Mm-hmm. So I guess when we both went there, I think we can acknowledge that the main tourist drive is the kind of promotion of the golden age.
Yeah, they're big on it. Yeah, it's everywhere.
So the centre tourism-wise of it is the
Mesquita.
Yeah, which is... It was a mosque, quite a famed mosque in its time, I guess.
The tower, the little bell tower kept me up every morning.
Did it really?
Yeah, because we were staying in the hotel across from it and it was just like every morning, dong, fuck off.
Were you drinking heavily on that trip?
I got a few duty-free bottles of bells.
Duty-free?
Yeah. Because I'm a fucking idiot.
Are you an old man?
Yeah, bottles of bells. The sort of the medium-sized ones
that they gave you on the plane.
Yeah, no, not quite that small. Like slightly bigger.
Why were you just like? I know a bargain when I see one.
Because I was wearing a flat cap and I thought it was fucking cool. I don't know.
So yeah, it's a mosque that is now a cathedral because it was basically they plonked a cathedral right on top of it.
Yeah,
like almost exactly in that manner.
Yeah,
the middle of it is a cathedral, and you can see how architecture-wise, for all your architecture nerds out there, the mosque had loads of arches, and it's on one level, and it's a long flat. Everyone would just pray in rows, right? And then, because there's arches everywhere, Connor's giving me a look like you're completely... What are you talking about?
No, okay. Yeah.
This is just your face. There's arches everywhere. And then you get to the cathedral bit, and the arches go from like beigey arches, aren't they? Like brown sand colours.
Yeah.
And then you get to like marble. So it's almost
basically, like... the Christian stuff has ruined what this Islamic thing had going, because obviously Islamic history, the Islamic Enlightenment, is all to do with kind of the rediscovery of mathematics from ancient Greece. A lot of that Aristotelian stuff, and obviously we have our numbers and stuff from this period, this Enlightenment. And one of the things that is present in Islamic art is the use of mathematics and the use of these kind of kooky designs. And basically that's what was going on. It was like an optical illusion with all
It
the
made it look like it was going on forever.
yeah, it was like infinite pillars. That's all you could see, and it just gives this really cool effect. And then you've got this massive fucking chapel thing in the middle,
big old organ,
yeah,
whacked in the middle.
It's just like, what are you doing? This
I showed you this photo. It's like it's almost like one fades into the other. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, send me that, and I'll put that on the show notes. Actually, I'll stick a link to the picture because that's I don't know. In some sense, it's like, oh, this is really representative of a sort of harmony, but in others, it kind of showcases this syncretic mashup of things that just do not mix.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's
the narrative at the time was definitely look at how peaceful and coexistent
when we went there.
Were.
Yeah, I think it's something they want to promote, and I can see why they would. But yeah, generally,
it's just a tourist thing.
It's all across. It's in the museums and the alcazars, the palaces.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird seeing orange trees everywhere.
Yeah,
just want to say
but apparently they were horrible. Like you couldn't just pick them off and start eating them.
Yeah, no, they're
minging. Sour.
I think we were just lobbing them at each other. But yeah,
it was really really strange to see oranges just growing.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. It's really hot and there's just oranges everywhere. Other than that, it's pretty the same.
But also, did you notice all the parking was underground? Did you notice that?
Yeah, probably because cars are fucking cook if they're on street level.
Yeah, but how mad is that? There'd just be, because there were these tiny, narrow roads, and then a door would open and a Mercedes would pull out because it's quite a wealthy area as well.
Yeah,
and they have these mad lifts, so you pull in, and then it was almost James Bond style, drop you down into an underground car park. I just thought it was crazy. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why examining this period of history is really interesting is because it tells us a lot about the three religions generally, and it gives us a good insight into history, and also how history can be just completely rewritten, and all the narratives are just kind of changed to fit the current one. This whole harmony and equality type narrative that a lot of these museums want to push for profit. I think that's one of the more interesting elements of this discussion.
So you might have already said this. We both had to write an essay on it. The title of mine was, "To what extent was there a golden age of religious harmony between Muslims and Jews in Islamic Spain?"
Yeah, mine was based in the context of faith relations between Semitic religions of Christianity, Islam and Judaism. How far can the golden age of Spain, the dates, be regarded as golden? So
is that your title?
Yeah.
Is that not the introduction?
No, that's the title.
So I think we both concluded that it couldn't be considered a golden age. Is that what? Well, that's what I concluded.
I don't think it's quite that. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's not black and white, obviously.
Yeah, of course. It's not golden in the sense that our current understanding of it is. Yeah. That's certainly true. And I think it's not without fucking horrible conflict and
subordination and strife and
but it's seemingly a little bit more tolerant than a lot of other things that were happening at the time.
So I guess my main argument in the essay that I wrote was about our own perception. It was the idea of us looking back and thinking, oh, look how tolerant that is, or look how intolerant that is.
Yeah.
It's all about anachronisms.
We do the same when we say, I don't know, Joan of Arc was a feminist icon. It's like,
Plato, Karl Popper said that Plato was a fascist.
Yeah, it's
in the 1930s.
These things don't make any sense.
Yeah. So how can Plato be a fascist when fascism was invented in the 1920s and 30s? It's that kind of applying modern concepts to. And sure,
that might be a useful tool in terms of helping modern audiences sort of understand a lot of these things, but it's not accurate in terms of some of the context of what we're looking at here. So you have
say what happened, the invasion.
Yeah, so the Islamic conquests were happening at this time, and
Muhammad, the prophet, had died, and there was a schism between who should be the rightful heir to not the rule of Islam,
Sunni and Shia split. Yeah,
and after this kind of schism had formed, there were different caliphates and different heirs It's all quite Game of Thronesy, I guess, isn't it? Because people were like double crossing. People were going into going into solitude and then coming back, claiming the throne, and think of it as like Arabic Game of Thrones, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
I'm on board with that.
dramaful. There's different families.
There's dragons. Oh wait, no.
There might have been. One of the families or dynasties, I guess, that emerged were the Umayyads, and basically, the Umayyads decided to go on a right old rampage, didn't they?
Yeah, their caliphate kind of took.
They went through Africa, North Africa,
and into southern Spain, and that's the situation.
Apparently, they were going to carry on going through France before they were told to stop by people back home. It wouldn't have been Baghdad, would it?
Yeah, there's some debate as to whether this is what actually spurred a lot of the Crusades. Were this whole idea of were the Crusades like retaliatory?
Yeah, just justified. But all you need to know is that it was a large sweeping victory up through Spain.
When people talk about the Golden Age, I think some of the more interesting things to look at are the intellectual contributions of Jews, Christians, and Muslims under these bunch of years for this period of about 500 years. So you have the Islamic Conquest, then the Christians retook this in the Reconquista, and then you had the...
Hence the Catholics put the church right. That was part of that was part of like the identity of Reconquest. It was like, this is ours now.
Putting massive churches on top of things. They love to do that. I don't know if you ever gone to like an old pagan tomb. There's always a chapel on top. It's just, and then under. Actually, I think this might actually be true of the. It is of the mosquito. Underneath the mosquito, so you've got chapel on top.
Yeah.
Mosquito underneath.
Is it Roman?
And Roman underneath. Yeah. And probably some sort of
something else underneath.
Something else underneath that. It's
dinosaurs.
Dinosaur temple.
Yeah.
Underground. I'm pretty sure that's Super Mario Brothers. But so
it's kind of like identity, like assertion.
And like other interesting things to look at: the Catholic Inquisition. You've got Islamic art, and particularly interesting is this guy Alfonso the 10th. Is it the 10th? I've forgotten what X means as a Roman numeral. 10th. Yeah. Yeah, of course it is.
Get together.
I'm so clever. Yeah. So I think all these kind of things are like central to the debate, because Alfonso the 10th is supposed to be this sort of very lenient leader. And it's like, well, was he?
I think my essay focused mainly on the initial period where you would find Jews and Christians living under Umayyad and then Abbasid rule, because there was another takeover. Did you go to the one museum where they had like Maimonides as a mannequin? And like
I saw the giant statue of Maimonides.
Yeah, there's a giant statue of Maimonides.
And people were like, "Oh, go up and rub his feet."
Yeah, did you not rub his feet?
I didn't rub his feet, no, because Maimonides would have absolutely not wanted people rubbing a giant statue of him.
An idol.
Yeah, it's like his Maimonides' whole shtick is that he's against idolatry, and it's just the worst fucking thing.
It's funny
rubbing his feet. Just reading back through my essay, and the reason why I put 1492 as the end, I think I basically concluded that the annexation of Granada and the whole that the Muslims finally lost all their power. Then it's really just, do you say that the Golden Age ended when they got pushed out of official power, or the complete sacking off of
I think
them out of the country entirely?
This again comes to the kind of like discrepancies with the whole thing, because there's so many conflicting received accounts of the history that I read. At least I'm pretty sure I remember that even before they were pushed out of Spain, like the Golden Age was coming to a close because this new family had moved in, like a house on Coronation Street. They'd moved in and things are starting to go downhill.
Maybe we should just talk about what people think this Golden Age actually was and meant.
Okay. Did you read Dario Fernandez Morera?
Probably, but you're asking me to remember something from 4 years ago.
You got the essay in front of you there, haven't you?
Yeah.
The Myth of the Andalusian Paradise.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, so I did. He was allegedly.
He was the main guy here, for me at least. So he talks about the initial conquest as some suggest that it was like they'd surround cities with their forces and then the cities would peacefully surrender. But others say, actually, no, there was shock and awe tactics. Like they would like ransack a city and then sue for peace like, afterwards. So even before the Golden Age had happened, we've already got conflicting arguments about the methods that were used.
So I think people want to kind of say that this is, because obviously the whole Golden Age thing, it's like, it's so evocative and striking. It's
like utopian almost.
Is there any culture that's ever enjoyed a Golden Age of anything? Straight away, you've got this kind of weird, overblown idea, which is impossible to compete with anyway. And that's part of the problem. Tell you what, there's some really nice art that I'm going to maybe put in the show notes, but kind of, it's from the time as well, and it does actually showcase a lot of this unity of all the religions. So I'm going to chuck that in there.
This area of the world was considered the ornament of the world, like because of the supposed peace and hotbed of activity. A lot of thought came out of this period. Like,
do you want to talk about the Jewish presence in Spain and how that kind of went through history?
I've got a little bit about before and then during.
Yeah, so the Jewish presence was basically goes back as far as something like 300 AD.
It's like I've got overwritten here from the 5th century to the 8th century. Spain was under the command of Visigoth Kingdom, which is Christian, and it is widely accepted that under the Visigoths, Spain suffered internally. King Roderick was the king of Spain, I guess, and apparently the Jewish communities of Spain under King Roderick lived in nearly enslaved squalor. Visigoth has alienated Spain's Jews. Their legislation forbade Jews from marrying Christians or owning Christian slaves, which I'm okay with the Christian slaves part. But they outlawed the observance of holy days, and they ultimately offered Jews the stark outlet of conversion to Christianity, exile, or slavery.
Right. So the when the Muslims took over Spain, this kind of changed.
Yeah, I mean, there's some argument that they were welcomed.
Yeah, they were ruled over as dhimmis. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, so this is when the Moors conquered Spain. Dhimmitude is basically
second-class citizens.
Yeah, they're sort of protected non-Muslims. So they enjoy a lot of protections and
because they were known
securities.
as people of the book.
Yeah,
like Christians and Jews, known as, because obviously Abrahamic faith.
Yeah, they're sort of like halfway there.
Yeah, they accept the monotheistic God, which is good, but they don't,
it stops them from being executed.
Yeah, as long as they're not idolatrous. So they were known as dhimmis. The Quran states, I guess it's section 2, verse 61. I don't know how that's split up. This is speaking of the Jews. And humiliation and wretchedness were stamped upon them, and they were visited with wrath from Allah. Right, so
that's nice.
It's not very nice, really, is it?
No.
But and I wrote, this view of the Jews can be seen to be practically expressed in laws surrounding taxation. So they had a tax called the jizya. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, jizya, which was not only a tax, so they were taxed for not being Muslims, basically, but it was also a highly symbolic expression of subordination. This is kind of coupled with the another word, dihila, which means humiliation or abasement, to indicate that God had assigned them a second-class subordinated status if they rejected Muhammad.
And then, to be honest, with the Christians, it was not that much better either. It's this whole kind of theme of ecclesiastical persecution. The Catholic Inquisition was a large part of this, and there's plenty of like pogroms and just some generally nasty shit. And like I said, for me, why it ends in 1492 is because this is when the Jews were also expelled. Right. So not only was Granada annexed, but the Jews were expelled. So for me, that's just the final. There's no coming back. And I think it was cemented with the final tragedy under Isabella and Ferdinand, where Jews and Muslims were basically seen as a scapegoat for just every single problem. By 1473, you had like just loads of pogroms and massacres and lootings against Muslims and Jews. And when they were chucked out or forcibly converted, it's important to emphasize, like, they had nothing. No donkeys, no transport. They weren't allowed to carry much of anything. And a lot of the places they were going wouldn't accept them either, like Portugal.
So they were expelled by Christians.
Yes.
They were living in, not security, but they were living in Spain. Then Spain was annexed by the Christians again, and then they were kicked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an important point, I think, because it shows that even though we've talked about how they were subordinated and they were seen to be humiliated, they were still allowed to live. You know what I mean? They were still allowed to practice, even though there might have been separation between
and not just live, but also to make important cultural contributions. Like I said about Maimonides. Maimonides lived in this. He didn't just have a statue there for the fuck of it. Like he lived here and he contributed to the intellectual conversation of the day. And to just end all that, because obviously Jewish pogroms, anti-Jewish pogroms, and kind of expelling them, and this was happening all over Europe throughout this time period. This was happening in France and it was happening in Britain. We largely forget that part of our history.
You mentioned Maimonides. I've written that Maimonides, whilst he was living under the Islamic rule, apparently this was under the Almohad. There was a lot of exactly just Game of Thrones, like someone who's next on the throne. Like he wrote a letter and complaining about the state of Jewish life under Muslim rule, and it reads, "On account of our sins, God has cast us into the midst of these people, the nation of Ishmael, who persecute us severely and who devise ways to harm us and debase us. No nation has ever done more harm to Israel." That's what he's saying.
There's also going back. I'm going to keep jumping forward and backwards in time to try and just get this point across that it wasn't all rosy. But the Christian stuff, there's on Good Friday and stuff, and they would make up horrible stories about anti-Semitic stories and stuff.
Yeah,
and just children would play games and things. There's loads of accounts of people nailing crosses to people's doors and things and covering it in sheep's blood. So
nice.
Not very good.
But I think if we are to make any value judgment on all these things, we would have to try and take ourselves out of our own context. Like we've talked about how they were persecuted and that life, according to Maimonides, was no nation has ever done more harm to Israel. We can look at those and think, oh, hot damn, how can that be a golden age?
Yeah. So the Jewish presence that was mostly here was part of the Sephardic Jews.
Yeah.
And it was in Córdoba during this period, to be fair, where they were given the freedoms to be able to set the standards for a lot of Jewish traditions. So a lot of Jewish traditions were born out of this period of relative strife, but also coexisting and security. So they were coming up with all kinds of morals and ideas of scholarship and ways of dressing and cultural traditions as well, which is not something that they could have really done in completely restricted kind of setting.
No, exactly.
And they were serving as they were in the courts. They weren't just confined to ghettos. They were actually
they held office. And,
they were in high positions. So just painting more of a picture here, it's more complex than just victims.
But again, this is not the picture that was presented to us or anyone that goes there. Really, the one museum. Did you go where that guy started singing?
Yes.
Right. That was specifically about Judaism in Spain.
Yeah,
but the main thing that they were trying to argue was that under the Christians it was bad. That when there was a reconquest, there were pogroms left, right, and centre. So they weren't arguing that under the Muslims.
During the Inquisition, Jews would have to mark their skin differently, so they couldn't obviously be circumcised. So they'd have to cut themselves in some other place, and generally just hide every element of their Jewishness, or find ways of concealing it. So this place that we went to, this was the last synagogue standing in Córdoba.
Yeah.
Last Jewish family, last synagogue, pretty much. It was. In fact, there are virtually no Muslims left as well, are there?
I think there's virtually no Jews left.
I don't think there's many Muslims left. So from around 38 million Jews, there are now only 15,000 Jews in the whole of Spain, and only I think 12,000 of them are actually Sephardic. So this place is only a synagogue because it contains a Torah. All the actual purpose-built synagogues that weren't someone's house were all destroyed. I think there's about 40 synagogues that were either brought to a state of complete disrepair in the whole of Córdoba or just completely destroyed. I think we went into one and there was just fucking nothing left of it.
We find Córdoba.
I've got it here. 10 Jewish families and about 1,000 Muslims still living in the whole of Córdoba. That was the last Jewish presence, really, in the whole region.
I think there are still mosques.
Yeah.
There, but those are relatively new mosques.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to pray in that mosquito anymore.
No, they're not.
Yeah. When you're saying about Jews holding office, there is an argument that they came to occupy such positions and to really get into these niches, these kind of taxes and bankers and occupying the sort of the official statesmanly sort of positions out of necessity so that they were tolerated out of pragmatism, because otherwise nothing would have been stopping the rulers from completely discriminating against them. So it was a kind of security.
Aren't Muslims forbidden from taking up certain jobs?
Yeah.
They can't do money lending. And that's why a lot of money lending was
so they fulfilled
palmed off
they
to
sort of passed that off.
I've got a photo here. Might be some use that I took in Córdoba.
Oh, that's
so that
lovely.
restaurant is called Sinai. So obviously a Jewish restaurant.
Yeah, sure.
And someone spray painted a swastika over it.
That's fucking grim, isn't it?
Yeah. So that I thought it was interesting that in this whole.
Yeah, I guess maybe they're trying to capitalize on this thing to the whole Golden Age thing to alleviate some tensions, maybe,
possibly,
and to try and retroactively look back through history and promote a sense of harmony that maybe isn't there now.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, saying that from one picture. But well, I mean, also the current climate, there's obviously tensions with
There was also
religion.
other graffiti about how feminists should fuck off or something.
Was there?
Yeah. It was quite strange.
Oh, I saw. When we went to this, I think it was one of the Alcazars, it was one of the palaces, and there was like graffitied like the Turks will rise again or something.
The Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, it was the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, it was the Ottoman Empire. Yeah.
Okay. If you think so.
Don't know why that was there. Yeah. So I mean, Maimonides was kicked out, wasn't he? So
he definitely didn't die there.
Produced most of his books in Cairo when he fled to.
Yeah.
I think he wrote 40 books. Something like that. I think he wrote
quite prolific, that Maimonides. Yeah. He's quite famous.
And
you still wouldn't touch his toes.
It's not his toes, mate. Should we move on to this guy Alfonso X?
Let's go with Alfonso.
Alfonso X. He's basically just portrayed as this benevolent figure, and I can't help but feel that's a bit of a caricature. Did you find anything on him?
No, I didn't do that period.
He kind of advocated some interfaith relationships and dialogues. It's like, how much of this is out of pragmatism? How much of this was like a political decision to try and appease certain groups? And how much did he genuinely believe in these ideals? A large part of the debate. I'd say it was the good age under Alfonso, not the golden one.
Not the just the silver.
Yeah, it's the Bronze Age.
No.
That's already been taken. Copper Age.
Has that not been taken as well?
Probably.
I think everything's been taken. Stone Age, Copper Age. What are we in at the moment?
The Shit Age. Yeah, so in terms of specifics, he rejected forcible conversion. He thought that was abhorrent and he spoke out against it. And it was kind of a theological position. Mm-hmm. He got that from Christian scripture. He was like, you shouldn't convert people by the sword. So yeah, I'm not necessarily convinced that was an intrinsic respect for other people's religions. I think that was more just quite a staunch faith in his own interpretation of his own religion rather than a respect for others. God, I used to waffle so much in these essays.
Yeah, I'm just reading my old essay like this is horrific. I'll probably think the same about the stuff I'm writing now in a year's time.
So interestingly, Pope Gregory X deposed Alfonso from his place because of all this.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think it was definitely clear that he went against the grain in some way. So yeah, just to say it's a golden age and Alfonso X was fucking amazing. It's like, well, the time you're living in, the Pope, who was like the big figure, was just like, nah, mate, not having any of it.
The thing we've got to combat is being anachronistic about the whole thing. I guess if you're Jewish, it's better to like have to pay some taxes and maybe be spat on once in a while than, see your whole family die. I think if the alternative is banishment or forced conversion, then this will be seen as like the best place to be.
Did you know it's only in 1869 that the Jews were finally freed from like an act that goes way back in? It was the 1492 thing. So they were expelled in 1492. That was only actually appealed in.
Mad.
Yeah.
They've had a hard time of it, those Jews, haven't they?
Yeah. They have a bit.
It's your podcast.
Oh, thanks.